Hi, guys. My name is Emily Kerr, and tonight I'm going to speak about how you've let me live. When I say you, I mean literally every single person in this room, and so many others who couldn't be here tonight who are affiliated with the Ohio Cobra Club in one way or another. Whether it be physically using your hands to build a raffle car, selling and buying tickets, or simply attending events put on by the club, you are literally letting me live. Every single dollar you have raised, and let me tell you, you've raised a lot of them, have led me to live the life that I'm living today. Now, some of you might recognize me as the girl who pulls the winning ticket every year, and I bet some of you were here the very first time I did so more than 10 years ago. For some of you, it might be your first time seeing me or even hearing about me, so I'm going to give you a quick recap on my story. I was sick off and on with pneumonia throughout the early years of my life, and it wasn't until I was 3 years old that my pediatrician suggested I be tested for cystic fibrosis. He was almost positive that I didn't have it, but thought I should be taken in for a sweat test just to be safe. For those of you who don't know, a sweat test uses electrical stimulation to encourage the sweat glands to produce sweat, and then measures the amount of chloride in that sweat. This test provides information on the person's salt concentration, which is relatively high in people who have CF. Long story short, my test came back positive. I was admitted to the hospital in December of 2000 and received my first PICC line to help flush my lungs with IV medications. My daily routine changed in the blink of an eye, and medications and treatments quickly took over large chunks of my day. The most important treatment was my chest therapy, which consisted of laying on a cheese wedge and having my parents pound on my back to help move the mucus around in my lungs as I coughed it out. I received my first vest a few years later, which is basically a machine that does my chest therapy for my parents so that they don't have to or get to hit me anymore. I got into the pattern of going into the hospital for a PICC line and getting sinus cleanups about every other year. It was a pattern I was too familiar with, and my list of medications seemed to grow as I did. But I have to say that I never necessarily considered myself sick or realized the condition of my health until it changed. In February of 2012, I began a study to take a drug that excited almost anyone who talked about it. I qualified to take this drug because it helps people with the G551D gene, which I have. Less than 5% of the CF population has this gene. The drug was called Kalydeco and consisted of groundbreaking research. Kalydeco, a pill taken twice a day with fatty foods, practically reversed my CF and made my body think it no longer had the disease. It worked to almost literally make me symptom-free. As I continued to take the drug, my medication and treatment list got shorter and shorter. I currently take vitamins, pills with my food to help my body digest what I eat, and my Kalydeco. I do one vest treatment a day for 20 minutes due to my high activity level, and that's it. After a few years on Kalydeco, I went back to take another sweat test like the one I had when I was diagnosed, and the test was unable to recognize that I have CF. You've let me live. And if it wasn't for all of your help letting me live, so many aspects of my life right now would be totally different. I have no idea if I'd be a student at the University of Dayton, a school that I love so dearly, and the school that's helped me gain my independence and freedom. I'm a Buckeye born and raised, but OSU just didn't have the same feel that UD did when I visited. There's a good chance that if I wasn't on Kalydeco today, I'd still be living at home and possibly commuting to classes. And as much as I love my parents and being at home with them, I am so thankful to be experiencing college in the way that I am. I cheered for the football and basketball teams for 2 years at UD, which is something that I had been doing my whole life, but something I very well could not have done if the circumstances were different. I made some of my closest friends through this team, and some of my favorite memories from college so far were made in that arena. This past spring, my roommate and I decided to end our cheerleading careers a little early, not because of my health in any way, shape, or form, but because I simply could and was ready to close that chapter in my life. I'm an early childhood education major, have a part-time job while being a full-time student, and I'm an active member of my sorority. I'm moving into a house in the fall with 5 of my close friends as we begin to tackle our junior year. You've let me live. I'm going to end with my favorite experience to date and how I feel like you've let me live in the greatest way. For a good amount of time now, I've sworn that I have a travel bug and I simply can't stand when my feet stay in one place. Last year, towards the end of January, I was lying in my bed talking to my roommate about how I felt like I needed to see the world, but that I didn't know how to get started with that kind of search. She suggested I look for a local church and try to go on a mission trip with them. After just a couple of searches, I found a nearby church that was set to go to Zambia, Africa in June. I contacted the church, who put me in contact with the person in charge of the trip, who just happened to tell me that he was purchasing the tickets for the flight later that same day. It was fate, and I knew I had to take up this opportunity, but I hadn't talked to my parents about it in the slightest, and knew it would take a lot of convincing on their end for me to go. My parents did agree with me that I was the healthiest I had ever been, and that the trip kind of did seem like fate. Although I didn't know anybody going on the trip, I felt like I needed to go. While my parents were very worried about how I would go about taking medicine in another country and how I would even get it there in the first place, they agreed that I could go on this once-in-a-lifetime experience. You've let me live because out of all of the things I've listed up here tonight, you took me to Zambia, Africa. You allowed me to touch so many lives all the way across the Atlantic while they touched my own. You allowed me to grow, to step out of my comfort zone, and most importantly, realize that nowadays there's simply no limits on my life. You've taught me a lesson that I take day by day, to live positively and to go with my gut, because you never know what blessings are coming right around the corner. I know that some of the guys said they wanted to see some pictures of my trip, so I did bring some of my favorites. I don't know if they're kind of out of order, so just bear with me, but this one is just a bunch of the kids in the village we were at. We went to 2 different cities, so this was one of the cities, and they're so goofy, but this was like our whole team that went, and these are dresses that some of the ladies made for us. They hand-sewn them for us, which is awesome. That was right before we left. There's some of the kids again. They were so excited because it was some of their first time seeing white people, so they thought that was very interesting. There's just some more of the kids. This is like how they did their pastime. They would roll up grocery bags and kick them around to soccer balls or play with tires. Much different than our kids here. This little boy. And we got to play volleyball with some of the older teens and the adults, which was cool. They had never played, but they picked up very easily. We did an open air safari, which was amazing. That was our truck. And some views. We did like a walking rhino tour, which was very cool. This was from the top of the boiling pot, which is at Victoria Falls, one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's just sunset. That's my dress that they made for me. And we passed out glow sticks, which the kids just thought were the coolest things ever. Some sights from the village. And the hugs were probably the best part, one of the best parts. That's the falls at sunset. That's a lion eating maybe a donkey. I'm not sure, but yeah. We were very close to all these animals. It was so cool. This was an open market, which we had to like barter at, and I'm very bad at that, but some of my friends helped me out there. We brought a parachute, which they also loved. That was the fabric store that we got to pick our fabric from. One of their classrooms just had a painted chalkboard on the wall, and that's about it. One of the ladies. These are some of the huts that we got to visit, and I'm not sure how the church organized it, but we got to go and visit with sick people, which was very cool, very humbling. That's on the safari. At the bottom of the boiling pot, which was a long hike, but it was so cool. The water just circles around down there. One of the little guys. That was in Lusaka, one of our towns, and those were one of the little houses we stayed in. We had to use mosquito nets just to protect ourselves from malaria, just in case. That was the boiling pot too. out the door. I think that was in Colomo. And they were getting ready. In the background, you can kind of see the bales of hay. They're getting ready to build a roof on top of those. Some zebras. Oh, this was cool. We got to follow some elephants down the path. And actually, I don't know if this is the next picture, they jumped into the Zambezi River and swam over to Zimbabwe, which was amazing. The tour guide said he'd never seen anything like that before, so that was cool. A hair salon in the city. Some of the kids. That was their playground, so like when you saw them playing with the soccer balls and the tires, that's why it's falling apart. And we made little bracelets, and they wore, it was funny, you saw them wearing those the whole time we were there. They never took those off. That was on our safari too. Those were some skull bones, a little freaky, but the lions had just had their lunch, I guess. There's the lion. All right, oh, there's another one. In the ground, everything's just so beautiful. It's so cool. And some giraffes. They're much paler, whiter than the ones at our zoo or anywhere you see them, so that they can blend in with their surroundings, I'm sure. That was from the top of the boiling pot, too. We saw some baboons just walking around there. That was a little freaky. Yeah, and back to the beginning. So last year during the Cobra car show, I was still in Zambia on my mission trip. I was bummed that I was missing such an amazing weekend back here in Ohio, but when my dad told me about how excited you guys were for this opportunity, I knew it was what I was supposed to be doing. Because now, after supporting me for more than half of my life, you guys finally get to truly see how you've let me live. Every single one of you have changed the face of cystic fibrosis. You've brought Kalydeco and Orkambi into this world, both drugs that weren't even imagined when I was diagnosed 16 years ago, and drugs that have significantly changed so many lives, not just my own. You've worked tirelessly raising so much money for the extensive research and support that is needed in the cystic fibrosis community. You all are such a vital factor in making CF one day stand for Cure Found. My family and I could not be more thankful and appreciative of all of you. Thank you from the very bottom of my heart for letting me and so many others truly live. Thank you.